Hello everyone. I'm very happy to have you back on my channel. In the previous episode, the story stopped at a moment where anyone in that position would find it difficult to make a choice. Jack was not just facing a simple decision. It wasn't about choosing between right and wrong in the usual way, but standing between two things, both of which could cost him dearly. On one side were the principles he had upheld for so many years, the final boundary of himself, the thing that allowed him to still look himself in the eye. On the other side was Tien, the person he could not allow anything to happen to. It wasn't a fair comparison, nor a choice that could be weighed, because no matter which side he leaned toward, he would lose a part of himself. And then, at the final moment, when everything was pushed to the limit, when there was no way back, no more time to think, things did not end the way people expected. On the contrary, they had only just begun to shift in another direction. Back in that room, the atmosphere remained heavy. There was no clear sound, yet it made it hard to breathe. Not because it was cramped, but because of the invisible pressure surrounding everything. Every glance, every movement, carried a sense of scrutiny. And in the middle of it all, Tien was still standing there. No longer panicked like in the first moments. No longer lost in her gaze. No longer reacting instinctively out of fear. Instead, there was a very different kind of calm. A calm, not because she wasn't afraid, but because she was trying to control herself. Her eyes were still fixed on Jack, not turning away, not avoiding him. As if, in this moment, she no longer cared about the people around her, and focused only on him. No words needed, no signals required. Yet in that look, so many things were conveyed. It wasn't a plea, nor pressure, but a kind of steadiness, a silence, enough to tell Jack that, no matter what he decided, she would still be there. As if she had accepted every possible outcome. Or rather, she was trying to keep Jack from breaking down before everything ended. Jack looked up. That moment was very slow. Not because he hesitated, but because he was gathering everything left inside himself. His eyes no longer wavered like before. No more hesitation. No more chaotic thoughts showing on the surface. Instead, there was a direct gaze. Very direct. He looked at the person standing in front of him, without avoiding, without lowering himself, as if the decision had already been made. And now was simply the moment to speak it out loud. Not fast, not rushed. He slowly said one sentence. "All right. I'll do it." The room fell silent for a second. A very short second. Yet it stretched long enough for everyone to feel. No one spoke immediately. No one reacted right away. As if everyone needed a pause to confirm what they had just heard. And then the looks began to change. No longer the initial tension, but shifting into another state. Satisfaction, control, and a sense of certainty. The stack of papers was pushed closer to him. A small action, but filled with meaning. No words were needed to understand that everything was going exactly as they wanted. But no one knew that. From that very moment, when those words were spoken, when every gaze believed Jack had agreed, inside him, it was not that simple. It wasn't complete surrender, nor a thoughtless decision, but a choice, made with very clear calculation. A move, not just for the present, but for what might come next. Because, at the very moment everyone thought they were in control, Jack was not the only one playing a game. And that game might not go the way anyone in that room expected. Hello everyone. I'm very happy to have you back on my channel. In another place, Uncle Dung, after trying to contact Jack many times without any response. It wasn't just a normal kind of busyness, not just a temporary delay, but a prolonged silence. Enough that he could no longer ignore it. At first, he tried to keep a positive mindset, thinking that Jack might be handling work, that he might just need more time. But the more he called, and received no reply, the uneasiness inside him became clearer. It wasn't a vague worry, but a very specific intuition. As if something was truly happening. He sat there quietly for a while, not rushing into action immediately. But in his mind, old memories began to resurface. The things Jack had said before, they were not meaningless. The people who had come looking for him, the times he had been pressured, the threats that were not spoken clearly but were easy to understand. And especially, the look in Jack's eyes in recent days. A heavy gaze. No longer as normal as before. As if he was carrying something very big, but couldn't speak about it. All those details, when put together, were no longer separate pieces. They became a picture, clear enough that he could not sit still anymore. Uncle Dung stood up, without further hesitation, no longer trying to reassure himself, because he understood. There are moments when being one step late means it's already too late. Together with Aunt Loy, the two looked at each other. No need for many words. Just one glance was enough to understand that they were thinking the same thing. They decided to call the police. There was no panic, no attention-grabbing actions. Everything was done with the necessary calm, because this was no longer something that could be solved with emotions, but a situation that required proper intervention. A decision. Quiet. Not showy. But the most important step. At that moment, back in that room, the atmosphere hadn't changed. The tension still covered every corner. Jack was holding a pen. A seemingly simple action, but carrying the weight of everything happening. His hand trembled slightly. Not because of fear in the usual sense. Not because he had lost control. But because he understood clearly. Every second passing now was critical. This was not acceptance, but a way to buy time. A choice, calculated in silence. He lowered his head. His eyes stopped at the lines in front of him. Not truly reading, but pretending to read carefully. Line by line. Slowly. Deliberately. Every small movement was controlled, as if he was considering everything, while in reality, he was stretching every moment, stalling. That was all. On the other side, Tien stood there, saying nothing, making no rushed movement. But her hand, gently clenched. A very small reaction. But it revealed so much. She understood. No explanation needed. No words from Jack required. She knew what he was doing. Knew that he wasn't truly agreeing. Knew that everything he was doing was to create more time. And in that moment, amid all the danger around them, a silent trust remained unshaken. And then, that embrace came naturally, without hesitation, without distance, as if everything that had been suppressed poured into that moment. No words needed, no explanation required. Yet it carried every emotion. Fear of what had just happened, of what almost happened. Worry for each other in every tense second. And the relief when everything finally was over. Jack held her tightly. Not just a fleeting embrace, not just a momentary reflex, but a grip, as if letting go would bring everything that just happened back again. For the first time, after all those days, after sleepless nights, after tangled thoughts with no way out, after moments that felt like reaching his absolute limit, he truly felt his own breath, no longer weighed down, no longer suffocated by invisible pressure, no longer forcing himself to stay composed. A breath, light, yet deep, as if everything he had been holding in had finally been released. Outside, the atmosphere had changed. The tension no longer hung in the air like before, but instead, there was a quiet stillness. Uncle Dung and Aunt Loy stood at a distance, not rushing forward, not interrupting the moment between the two, just silently watching. A kind of observation, not to check, but to be certain that everything was truly okay. Their eyes were no longer heavy like before. No more restlessness. No more unanswered worries. Instead, there was a clear sense of relief. A feeling that only those who have truly worried can understand its value. They didn't need to say anything. No need to show too much. Just seeing Jack and Tien standing there, safe, still together, was enough. Everything had finally been stopped. Not too late. Not after everything had gone out of control, but right before it went too far. A very fragile boundary between what can still be fixed and what can never be undone. And this time, they stopped. Just in time. Those involved were taken away one by one. No resistance. No chance to delay. Everything followed procedure. Clear and decisive. The documents were collected, one by one. Things that once served as tools to force, to control, now were nothing more than evidence. no longer holding power to threaten, no longer able to control anyone. Jack stood there, watching everything unfold, not stepping in, not saying anything more. But in his eyes, there was a change. No more tension, no more guardedness, but a clarity. Something had become clear to him, not through words, but through what he had just experienced. He realized there are moments when a person is pushed into a corner, where every choice carries risk, where it feels like there's no way back, where just one wrong step could cause everything to collapse. But even in those moments, there is always a line, a boundary between compromise and holding on to what is right. It's not always easy to see, not always possible to stay calm enough to choose. But as long as you don't cross that line, don't accept doing what you know is wrong, then the chance still exists. Even if small, it is still there. A few days later, life gradually returned to its familiar rhythm. Not an instant change, not everything suddenly becoming perfect, but little by little, returning to normal. The threatening calls no longer appeared. No more sounds that made one jump in the middle of the night. No more unfamiliar eyes watching from afar. No more constant feeling of being on guard. Every time stepping outside, the quiet returned. A quietness that once might have felt ordinary, but after everything became more precious than ever. Jack and Tien sat together on an afternoon with nothing special, no incidents, no pressure, just a peaceful moment, soft light, a calm space. No need to say much, no need to revisit what had happened, because they both understood what they had been through, understood what the other had done, and understood that some things don't need to be spoken. Just being there for each other was enough. A simple feeling, yet very solid. Not loud, not showy, but enough to bring peace of mind. Difficulties had not disappeared. The remaining problems still existed. Life would still bring other challenges. But this time, they no longer saw them as overwhelming. Because they knew, as long as they stayed together, as long as they held on to what mattered most, everything could be overcome. And this time, there was no longer the feeling of running away. No more rushed decisions under pressure. No more forced choices. But instead, a beginning. A beginning. Chosen. Thought through. And built upon what is right. It may not be an easy path, but it is a path they can walk with greater certainty. And that is what truly matters most. The story temporarily comes to a close here. Not a complete ending in the sense that everything stops. Not a full stop to everything that has happened. But simply a pause. A quiet moment. To look back at what they have been through. Because what just happened was not just an incident. Not merely a passing challenge. But a journey. Where every choice, Every moment left its mark. Jack went through a very fragile boundary between losing himself and holding on to what is right. Tien stood firm, not with loud strength, but with calmness and quiet faith. And those around them also played their part in keeping everything from going too far. All of it created a journey, not easy, but meaningful. But as mentioned, this story does not end here, because life is never just one chapter. After the storms come peaceful days. But after peace, what challenges might still be waiting ahead? Have the difficulties truly passed completely? Or are they only temporarily quiet, waiting for another day to return in a more unexpected way? And Jack and Tien, after everything, how will they rebuild their lives? Will their next choices lead them into difficult situations again? No one can know in advance. We can only continue to follow, step by step. If you have been with the story this far, if you have felt what they have gone through, then surely you won't want to miss what comes next. The upcoming episodes will not just be a continuation, but also the answers to the questions that remain unanswered. Stay tuned for the next episodes to continue following the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts below. Every bit of your support is the motivation for the next stories.
Xin chào mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Nay thì mình tiếp tục đưa đến cho mọi người video về câu chuyện tình yêu của Tien và Dung nha mọi người. Cảm ơn mọi người rất nhiều vì đã theo dõi và ủng hộ cho kênh của mình. Bây giờ thì mình mới đang làm video thôi, cũng chưa có xong. Tí nữa xong thì mình sẽ đăng tải lên. Và hiện tại thì mình vẫn đang chọn một tấm ảnh để có thể làm ảnh bìa cho video. Ảnh không neo á mọi người, và cũng chưa có tấm nào ưng ý. Cảm ơn mọi người rất nhiều vì đã theo dõi và ủng hộ cho kênh của mình. Hẹn gặp lại mọi người trong những video tiếp theo và mong rằng sẽ được mọi người yêu quý và ủng hộ hơn trong những video tiếp theo. Tạm biệt mọi người, hẹn gặp lại ở trong những video sau.